Guess what I got for Christmas? What, James? Guess. What, James? I got a car. It's really cool, and it's red, and goes vroom. All across the world, all kinds of different people celebrate Christmas. It is actually recorded that over 2 billion people celebrate Christmas in over 160 countries. But why is this wonderful holiday loved so much? I, today, will be presenting a story on one man who particularly hated Christmas, all because he didn't quite understand its worth. How the Grinch Stole Christmas by Dr. Seuss. Every Who down in Whoville liked Christmas a lot, but the Grinch did not. The Grinch hated Christmas, the whole Christmas season. Now please, don't ask why. No one quite knows the reason. It could be his head wasn't screwed on just right. It could be perhaps his shoes were too tight. But I think the most likely reason of all may have been his heart was 2 sizes too small. Whichever the reason, his heart or his shoes, the Grinch stood there on Christmas Eve, hating the Who's. Then he growled, with his Grinch fingers nervously drumming, "I must find some way to stop Christmas from coming." For tomorrow he knew all the Who girls and boys would wake up bright and early and rush for their toys. And then, oh, the noise. That was the one thing he hated. The noise, noise, noise. Then all the Who's down in Whoville, the young and the old, would sit down to a feast, and they'd feast, and they'd feast, and they'd feast, feast, feast. They would feast on Who pudding and rare Who roast beast, which was something the Grinch could not stand in the least. Then they'd do something he liked least of all. All the Who's down in Whoville, the tall and the small, would stand close together with Christmas bells ringing. A-ling-ling-ling. They'd stand hand in hand, and the Who's would start singing. And they'd sing, and they'd sing, and they'd sing, sing, sing. And the more the Grinch thought of this Who Christmas sing, the more the Grinch thought, I must stop this whole thing. Why? For 53 years I've put up with it now. I must find some way to stop Christmas from coming. But how? Then the Grinch had an awful idea. The Grinch had a wonderful, awful idea. I know just what I'll do. He chuckled in his throat. He made a quick Santa Claus hat and a coat. With this Santa Claus hat and this coat, I look just like Saint Nick. All I need is a reindeer. So he called his dog Max, and he took some red thread, and he tied a big horn on the top of his head. Then he loaded some bags and some empty old sacks on a ramshackle sleigh. He hitched up old Max. Then the Grinch said, "Giddy up!" And the sleigh started down toward all the homes where the Who's lay snooze in their town. All the windows were dark, quiet snow filled the air. All the Who's were all dreaming of sweet dreams without care. He pulled up to the first of the house on the square. "This is stop number 1, the Grinchy Claus hissed. Then he climbed to the roof, empty bags in his fist. Then he slid down the chimney, a rather tight pinch. But if Santa could do it, then so could the Grinch. All the little Who stockings were hung in a row. "These stockings," grinned the Grinch, "are the first things to go." Then he slithered and slunk with a smile most unpleasant. Around the whole room he took every present. Pop guns and bicycles, roller skates and drums, checkerboards and tricycles, popcorn and plums. He stuffed them in bags, and the Grinch very nimbly stuffed the bags one by one up the chimney. Then he stuffed all the food up the chimney with glee. "And now," grinned the Grinch, "I will stuff up the tree." So the Grinch grabbed the tree, and he started to shove. But he heard a small voice as the coo of a dove. He turned around fast. He saw a small Who. Why? It was little Sidney Lou who was no more than 2. He had been caught by this tiny Who daughter, who'd got out of bed for a cup of cold water. She stared at the Grinch. Then she said, "Santa Claus, why? Why are you taking our Christmas tree? Why?" But That old Grinch was so smart and so slick, he thought up a lie. And he thought it up quick. "Why, my sweet little tot," the Grinchy Claus lied, "there's a light on this tree that won't light on one side. I'm taking it to my workshop, my dear. I'll fix it up there, and I'll bring it back here." His fib had fooled the child, and he patted her head, and he got her a drink, and he sent her to bed. And when Sidney Lou Who had went to bed with the cup, the Grinch went to the chimney and stuffed the tree up. In the house, the one speck of food he left in the house was a crumb that was even too small for a mouse. Then he did the same thing to the other Who's houses, leaving crumbs much too small for other Who's mouses. 'Twas 1/4 past dawn, all the Who's still abed, all the Who's still a snooze, when he packed up his sled. 3,000 feet up to the side of Mount Crumpet, he rode with his load to the tip-top to dump it. "Pooh-hoo to the Who's," he was grinchily humming. "They're finding out now that no Christmas is coming. They're waking up now, I know just what they'll do. Their mouths will hang open for a minute or two. Then all the Who's down in Whoville will all cry, 'Boo-hoo!' That's a noise," grinned the Grinch, "that I simply must hear." So he paused, and he put his hand to his ear. But the sound wasn't sad. Why, it sounded merry. All the Who's down in Whoville, the tall and the small, was singing without any presents at all. He hadn't stopped Christmas from coming. It came, somehow or other, it came just the same. And he stood there with his Grinch feet ice cold in the snow, stood puzzling and puzzling. How could it be so? It came without ribbons, it came without tags, it came without packages or boxes or bags. He puzzled 3 hours till his puzzler was sore. But then the Grinch thought of something he hadn't before. Maybe Christmas, he thought, doesn't come from a store. Maybe Christmas, perhaps, means a little bit more. And what happened then? Well, in Whoville they say, the Grinch's small heart grew 3 sizes that day. And the moment the Grinch's heart didn't feel quite so tight, he whizzed with his load through the bright morning light. He brought back the toys and the food for the feast, and he himself, the Grinch, carved the roast beast.